record this. All right, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to, throw them out there for me to start with. If not, like I mentioned earlier, I've got some stuff ready to roll if you don't, but I'll give you guys a couple quick minutes to think about it. And what I would say is, John, like I mentioned, if you got people down in the Orlando area that you want me to visit, just let me know. We are doing a lunch and learn on March 15th. Gloria, do you have your link handy by any chance for the date?
Yes, I do. Let me go ahead and put it in the chat.
Okay. So what this is an opportunity if you have people that you want to join Valor or Bright Life, whatever, but kind of join the org per se. These micro collaborations are going to be for basically a short duration of time. It's about 2 hours. We're going to do a carrier, like a carrier piece. And then after that, we're going to do, like a presentation on a sales idea. And then after that, why work with us kind of thing. So it's one of those things where, again, this isn't to say that we're deterring from the Great Collaboration event that's May 3rd and May 5th. But the idea of this is for those who are looking for an avenue to see if there's a different opportunity out there, a different way to add value. We're just doing a lunch and learn in Orlando. We're also going to be doing one in Charlotte on the 27th of March. Yeah. Sacramento, Napa area, April 1st, Anaheim, April 3rd, Dallas, April 7th, Louisville, April 16th, Pittsburgh, April 24th, and then we have the great collaboration, May 3rd and May 4th. So we're doing these across the country to give people a little splash of what we have available, but then the great collaboration itself, which if you haven't yet, it is tgcconference.com. You can register here. And what I would say is the benefit of this is that it is all sales ideas, all different people from different types of businesses and different type of opportunities for you to learn, grow, and collaborate with like-minded individuals in the industry. It is not a recruiting event. Okay. So that's the big thing is a lot of people think that this is Valor. There's a reason why I call it the Great Collaboration, is it gives us a chance, myself, Roderick, who's right there, and others to come together. Uh, Plans for Phoenix. So the ones that we're doing are surrounded around the Rise partners who joined as you know, upper echelon. It's a partnership program. So the first tier is in their territories, if you will. And as we grow it, I can see us going to more locations. So, yes, Phoenix is kind of on my round two. Subash, I know we are talking about doing something in Illinois. I was actually supposed to get a Rise partner in Illinois, but they bailed at the last minute. So I'm actually looking for Rise partners in Illinois, New Jersey, Georgia, Florida, and southern Texas, like the Houston area. I can't do it because, my hair will get all frizzled because of all the humidity there. So I choose not to do it. But in any event, yes, we'll consider going out to Phoenix and Chicago as well at some point this year because, I don't like staying at home. So, all right, well, diving in again, any questions or anything that you want me to start with? If not, I was kind of going to running some different types of illustrations and having conversations around that. So, Going once, going twice.
Phil, I got a question. Can you go on down a little more explain how the cash value works? I mean, like how to take out the cash value from
Mhm.
IUL?
Yeah. So you want to talk about specifically how it works or
I
like
mean,
the different mechanics?
how the clients can take it out, the withdrawals.
Yep. Yep. That's a good one. That's a good question. So the different types of ways that you can actually pull the money. Sure, we can do that. Let me switch to the whiteboard because I like drawing pretty pictures. So, so yeah, I mean, and that was actually going to be part of what I was going to illustrate, but on the different aspect on the protection side. But let's start out with the accumulation side because let's be honest, that's what everyone likes to talk about, is accumulation and cash growth. So benefits of IUL, benefits of cash value life insurance in general, is the ability to use money while you're alive. Okay. The cash value ultimately becomes part of the death benefit, one way or another upon death, whether it is to keep costs down and reduce your cost of insurance or stack on top of your death benefit, depending on the situation. So, in the scenario here, we'll focus specifically on, say, taking out a loan in an IUL, and how it works for the customer. So before we get started, I'll ask a quick question. Um, when you take out money from the insurance company, is it your money?
Yes, it's a growth money.
Yeah. I mean,
Yep. Jessica, say it
no,
again, Jessica.
no.
Yep. Yep. You're actually not taking your money because you're taking a loan against your cash value. You can take a withdrawal if you want to, but there's pros and cons to doing that. The pro would be you don't have any loan interest rates or anything like that to worry about. The con is some carriers actually charge you to take out money, say 250 bucks for example's sake. So they kind of want to redirect you back to taking that loan. Now, typically, there's two different types of loans inside of the policies. There are standard loans. People call it different things. Um, but standard loans is typically the major one. And you'll see a variation of these, but participating loans is what the general consensus is. You would see it as an indexed loan, you'd see it as a variable loan per se, but it all goes back to participating. And when we look at how these are structured, a standard loan and a participating loan still has that big key word there that you're taking a loan. Now, anytime you take a loan, there has to be some form of interest charged to the account because you're taking a loan. What's happening though is in, let's say, for example's sake, someone pulls out $50,000 from this and they put it into a standard loan. Now, what's happening is the client is seeing that they're borrowing money, okay, or they're getting money in their pocket. They feel it's theirs, they can touch it, it's something that has grown and accumulated. But what's happening is the insurance company is putting this money aside into this fixed bucket and they're charging you interest of 3%. But you can't have money sitting idly at an insurance company, so they're going to credit you 2%. So what does that equal? at 1% cost. Okay. This is usually done in probably years 1 through 10. So can anyone think why an insurance company would actually have a charge in the first 10 years?
Does it cover cost?
To
part of this?
incentivize people.
Gloria, you first, then Jessica, you second.
Well, to save, but then also to cover part of these costs.
Okay. Jess, what were you gonna say?
Hi, I was gonna say to incentivize people to actually use the product as a long-term product and not to just put money into it and try to get some kind of return and pull it out, and then the insurance company end up losing money. Is that the calculation for the premium load?
It's not the calculation for the premium load. Premium loads are usually around 6 to 8%, given on the
Okay,
carrier.
that's what I thought.
Yep. So, but you're both right to a certain extent. I would lean more towards Jessica's answer because recall when you have a policy, an IUL, the insurance company is losing money in the first at least 10 years. That's why there's surrender charges. So the fear of them losing the policy because maybe you take a loan out and then it lapses, they got to at least recoup some type of credit, if you will, if you start borrowing money or pulling it from the policy, which could create it to be an unhealthy relationship. Because usually after years 10, so we'll say 11 plus, most carriers do a 2% charge and a 2% credit, leading to a net 0% cost or a wash loan. So that's how a typical standard loan would be, where it is a more conservative approach. Now, why would anyone do this? Let's say you're in your 60s, you want to mitigate risk, you don't want to have any additional charges, so maybe you just want to do a standard loan. So it's a net zero cost loan, saves you money in the long term, or saves you risk in the long term, I should say. There are some agents who actually run their illustrations at standard. They'll run their standard loans as opposed to the participating. Why? Because if you have specific client control, if you show it and do it appropriately, they should buy it. The hard part is we live in such a hard industry because anyone can pick up a license and anyone can just go click, 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 click on an illustration, and the carriers have a design to show participating right off the bat that someone could outperform you with their illustration just by showing participating versus standard. So we'll come back to that in a second. Let's understand participating. So same thing here. 50K is borrowed and it goes in the participating box. Now, typically with these loans, they have a fixed cost. Carriers will range between 4 to 6% roughly, and that is a static number. Some carriers pride themselves on never going higher than 5%. I know Corebridge can go up to 8%, but they never have gone higher than 5 or 5.5. So it's just a matter of opinion, which way you want to go, or if that matters. Now, if this stays a static number, what is the benefit? Well, on the standard side, this is going into a box. They're putting it up on the shelf, and it's almost like your money got benched. So in the big game, your money got benched. It's not active. It's sitting on the side, just yielding a 2% return, and it's getting a 2 or 3% charge. So it's just sitting there. It's a backup quarterback, sitting on the bench. Well, in this situation, we have a participating 50K. So it's like if you had, say, 100K here on the standard side minus 50K, you have 50K active in the S&P 500, for example's sake.
Mhm.
Okay. On this side, you have 100K and you take a 50K loan, but it is still inside the S&P 500, so you're at 100K, still active or participating in all of the opportunity cost. So in this scenario, what's happening is you have, let's say the S&P has a 10% return. And to keep things simple, we're just going to say that we have a 5% loan rate. Okay, so if the S&P returned 10% and there's a 5% loan rate, we have two buckets of 50K working right now. The first bucket, let's say the cap is 10% as well, so this bucket is going to get credited 10%. This bucket is going to also get credited 10%, but it has a loan against it, so minus 5%, leaving you with a 5% positive cash arbitrage. So you're participating, you're still moving forward with the activity in the market or opportunity inside of the market where you wouldn't be on this side of the fence. You only have 50K active. So when you go back and look at illustrations, if I ran a standard loan versus a participating loan, everything else is exactly the same. The participating is going to show higher returns because they're always showing a consistent positive return every single year. As we all know, the market doesn't do a positive return every single year. So we have to understand that the illustrations that we're using to show, they're designed to show an idea or a hypothesis. They're not gospel. But too many people think that they're gospel, and that's the problem. So, from this standpoint, you have a positive cash arbitrage, you're getting more money back credited to the account versus if you were just doing it by itself, and ultimately the illustration will look better. So, does all of this make sense so far? John, did this help?
Yes, Bill.
Okay.
Yes, Bill,
So,
that helped.
okay, good. So let's do this. Let's take a look at it in the example standpoint of running an illustration. So I'm going to go to WinFlex. And again, there's different ways to get into WinFlex. So I have a version that I've had for, almost 2 decades. So I have a direct link in, but you could either log in through the 3Mark portal if you're logged in that way, or if you have a direct contract, because we have some of those too, you can get in through Connects and then through there get in. But let's just do it the easy way because I already have a direct in with WinFlex. So I'm going to go to illustrations. And we'll use QOL just because I know it the best. It's easy. We'll use the QOL max accumulator. So I'll click on that and hit create client. And let's just do good old Phil. And we'll just say I'm 40, preferred, and I live in not Rhode Island. Who would want to live there? Tennessee. All right, so we're doing an income solve. So you'll see a lot of times the carrier will start out at no solve because they want you to be the architect of your own design. So if we take this solve for and we change it because in a case where you want to solve for income, typically you know how much the client wants to spend. So we would solve for the face amount because we want the least amount of face to give us the most amount of income possible. So let's say I, Phil Resch, want to put $10,000 in a year, and I want to do that for a total of 15 years, not 154, 15 years, and then after do absolutely nothing. So what you don't see on the screen, in case you're like, wow, he did that fast, is I'm literally just not, I'm double clicking on here, changing the number, and then just clicking off the screen off to the side, double clicking there, turning it to 0, and then clicking off to the side. Very easy, but I know sometimes like when I run this, some people are like, slow down. So you just click the calendar and you change it, make it
Like you're
easier.
an expert. You could do this in your sleep,
I
man.
could, it's back of the hand. Um, Another quick thing that I'll mention too is, and a lot of you who've known me from either prior life, current life, whatever, understand that I always diversify my indexes because I do not trust what the carriers want you to pick. Uh, Personally speaking, like the proprietary indexes are designed to show higher on spreadsheets, but statistically speaking, the S&P has probably the best back testing out of all of them. I don't want to miss out on an opportunity though, so I'll either do 33, 33, 34, or sometimes I'll do 60, 20, and 20. So I did 60, 20, and 20 for my boys on their policies. So there were some months where MLSB and PIMCO did better, but majority of the time the S&P still reigned true. And I have a cap of 11.5% here. This is 100% par and 75 par. For those who missed last week, we talked about annuities a little bit, and or was that on Monday? I think it was Monday actually with you, John.
Yeah, it was
For
okay.
yeah, the days are just all. But for those who don't know, typically when you see participation rates like this for the indexes, the lower the number, the more aggressive it is. So they have to hedge and give you a lower participation rate to get a balance, say around 6 to 8% is usually where they want to nail it. So from the standpoint of if you see carriers that have 180, 200%, they typically don't perform well. Case in point, one of my agents up in New Jersey, he actually wrote a case on his son, had 210 participation in Allianz on a couple of accounts, and he's like, dude, which is the best for juvies? I was like, well, Corbridge has a good product. He's like, what about Allianz? I was like, what about them? He's like, oh, their par rates are crazy right now. Said, let me see a statement from your son. And he had 1.34% return. And I was like, mine, I got tens, 12s, nines, so it's like you have to understand what these companies are doing. That's why I diversify and typically, or very rarely, will I go with what they provide, is the best way to put it. So I'll just leave it here 60, 20, 20. I'm going to skip disbursements for a second. If you see here, we did a 15-year, a 15 pay. So I'm going to go policy options. And if you want to maximize the income, you only want to have increasing for the amount of years that you're funding. It'll reduce your cost of insurance when you stop increasing, which will give you more cash to pull out. So I'm going to click on the calendar, change this to 15, and then double click here and click level. You can do monthly. It's right there. I'm just going to keep it an annual because I'm going to keep it as simple as possible. Now we're just going to go to disbursements, and I'm going to show you two different ways to run it. So the first one, we'll click on the calendar here, and I want to start income let's just say the typical retirement age. So I'm going to click on this max. I'm going to change it to 64, then 65 to, let's just say 89. And we're going to do the drop down here and hit solve for max. Okay. Now, as I mentioned before, the carrier auto defaults to participating loans. Corebridge shows a loan rate of 5.5%, but what people don't realize is in their participating loan, they're offering a credit of 1%, so it's actually 4.5%. Keep in mind, those are not guaranteed. They could take it away at any point in time, but as of right now, their loan rate is actually 4.5% because of that 1% credit. Don't ask me why people do that. I just know that they're doing it. So now I'm going to do this. I'm going to hit copy, and I've created two of me. So everything is exactly the same. Indexes, disbursements, options, nothing else here, plain vanilla. All I'm going to do is change this to a standard loan. And again, for those who have never seen this before, far left, you hit select all. It checks both boxes. You don't hit the orange calculate if you want to run them both at the same time. Top left, you want to hit calculate in the top left-hand corner. It'll do both at the same time. You can use that same copy function, go to a different carrier and a different product, and then rinse and repeat. And then you have several companies that you can calculate at the same time. It's a little bit of manual work, but it can be done. And if you do it in WinFlex, it allows you to not have to go to all the carrier sites to get the different options. So it's a perk. So we got one completed. The other one's taking its sweet time. It's probably because it's the standard loans, But you'll see right off the bat, same face amount, same face, same premium, same duration. So we'll first check out the participating income, and we're just going to go all the way down to the money page. So I'm not going to go through all this right now. I'm just going to go down to show you the money. Okay, loans and withdrawals tab, far right-hand column. And we go to 65 and we got 39,947. Okay, so I actually did the same illustration earlier. So 150,000, if you do 39,947 times by 25 years, you're just shy of $1 million, like 998. So 150,000 investment can get you potentially $40,000 a year or $1 million in tax-free income over a 25-year period with roughly a 6.5% return. Jess, you're going to say something?
That was my question.
Oh, yes. All right.
So
So
what was the
Can
return
you
again? I'm
change that?
sorry.
the return was 6.5%. So you have
Okay.
6.99 from the cap, 6.1 from the PIMCO, and 6.34 from MLSB.
Now,
So
you did this at $10,000 a year, correct?
correct for 15
Okay,
years.
thank you.
Yep. So if we flip the script, like I said, we go to standard loans, and we're going to just look at the exact same thing at the money page. I'm going to scroll all the way down, and you're going to see here, same thing, 32,244. So as you can see, we did absolutely nothing different but change the loan rates. And it's simply because one will stay active and participating, the other will not. And that's the main difference. This number could be a lot bigger in some other cases, just so you know. This is a mild case, comparatively speaking, to some of the other ones that I've seen in the past. I still run participating because if I'm heavily weighted in the S&P, and the S&P traditionally does an average of 10% over 30 years, I think that I could win by keeping the participating, but that is again a personal opinion. Maybe when I'm 65, I won't have the exact same opinion. So it's going to vary depending on client to client. I'll show you another little trick though. But before I do, does this all make sense from the standpoint of how standard loans and participating loans can differ?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So when you put when you change the increasing to level, is that like a manual optimal switch? Is there like a way to put that in there as an optimal switch?
No, and the reason is no carrier. I think there's like, so back in the day, I know when I was at MetLife, we had a A, B, so level increasing, and then we had a C.
Mm,
C automatically flipped it at 65, but it was on a VUL. The reason why carriers usually don't do that is because someone's mind could change. So if I'm at, say, 55 and I want to keep putting gas on the fire, I don't want the company to automatically flip and levelize my death benefit,
mhm.
right? They're going to still send me bills after 15 years. It's just my obligation to choose not to pay them.
So that's something that cannot be serviced yearly on a policy to change. Okay.
Yep. That's the benefit of you as the financial professional to be with the client. Now, some personal recommendations that I would have is put a cover sheet together when you're delivering the policy. Jessica, thank you so much for the opportunity to serve you. This, again, is a policy to help supplement your retirement with tax-free income. Our initial goal was this, for you to pay for 15 years with an average 6.5% return starting at 65. You should be looking at around $39,000 to $40,000. But there are some steps that we need to take in the process. Once you are done funding, which is right now planned at 15 years, you can call me, or if something happened to me or we're no longer talking, then you can call the insurance company and ask them to change it from increasing to level.
Okay.
Okay. So what does that do? Reduces complexity to a complex design, reduces future frustration, and allows you to have a better value proposition to your customer. You can even create a canned, cover sheet and then just insert
Hmm. That
and
makes
make
sense.
it happen.
So when you switch
So,
it from that increasing to a level, does that turn it from like an annual renewable to a level premium at that point for whatever age they're at, or does it continue to be annual renewable?
well, I mean, at the heart of the policy, it's still the same.
Okay.
Because what's going to happen is, so like if I showed you, let's do this, this will be a good exercise too. As I mentioned before, the cost of insurance or the load charges, like you mentioned earlier, you asked a question about how much the premium load is, varies per company. But what you'll find is that depending on how much the net amount at risk is, dictates how much the insurance costs are. And so if you show higher illustration rates, then you have a higher success or failure because if you have lower returns, you're going to have higher costs of insurance. It's going to hurt your customer in the long run. But to kind of go back to your question, if we go all the way down to the actual policy costs, okay, so this is how the sausage is made. You got $10,000 going in for 15 years. This policy has a load charge of 1936. Okay, that's a combination of a couple things. First and foremost, are you guys familiar with how like A shares work versus B shares and C shares, like if you're buying stock?
No, Phil.
Okay. So an A share, if I was to buy an A share stock, I would hand a broker $100. There would be a load charge, and maybe $80 would be invested. So it's taken right off the top. If I did a B share, I'm handing them $100, $100 gets invested, and then on the back end, there's a fee or a load charge. C shares is just trails of fees throughout the process. In this scenario, if you're talking to someone who is familiar with stocks, you could correlate the annualized monthly charges as a load charge or like an A share stock because you're pulling out the money as a fee before it gets active. And you'll see the total charges here is 2168. And so 8 grand is going towards growth. And that's what's going to kind of make it work. Now, if you'll see, I said after 10 years, the carrier kind of recoups their losses. It's usually really around 10 to 15 years, depending on the carrier. But you'll see that the fees drop starting in year 11, and then they're next to nothing in after the surrender charges are over. Because you see the net amount at risk between 229 and 343 yields a charge of about $242 for cost of insurance. So it's dirt cheap. You've paid your dues. You have gotten through the early years, which is going to cost the most. And then when you pull out money, your charges are insignificant comparatively speaking. And not a lot of people understand that because we don't explain it because we're afraid to look at the fee structure. If I saw that and someone told me I got to pay basically 20% to fees in the beginning, they'd say it's ridiculous. I'm not going to pay that. But if they understand that it's going one towards insurance, so if you die, that 10,000 basically gave your spouse 184,000 tax free. There's living benefits, but on top of that, you also have when you want to take the money out, the least amount of fees. And this number right here is going to be a lot less than the taxes you would owe if you took out $40,000 a year. You're going to have a lot more than $630 in taxes if it was a taxable event. So it's all in how you look at it. Is the cost of tax greater than or equal to the cost of insurance? That would dictate whether or not this is a better value proposition for the customer.
That makes sense. Thank you.
No problem. So I'll share with you the little trick that I was going to say. So if you see here, we'll go back up to this page, which is kind of like your detailed summary page. Now, for those of you who like to get into the details, nothing wrong with that, but I'll tell you right now, most customers don't want to go into details unless they're an engineer. Okay. A little rule that I had that was taught to me by one of my old external wholesalers was, Phil, you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. Don't tell me how the clock is made, just tell me the time. Okay. So a lot of this stuff here is just minutia, behind the scenes stuff. But if some customer asks you, what's this insurance test? What's this guideline level premium test? Single premium, 7-pay? The best way to say it is to keep it very simple. These are 3 guideline tests to make sure that your policy stays within the rules of life insurance versus a traditional investment. They don't want you for this death benefit. They don't want you to go any higher than 10,000 a year. The 7-pay says 12,225, but it'll violate one of these other rules and it'll turn your policy into an investment and there would be no tax-free income. So the best way to do this, Mr. and Mrs. Client, is to do the level premium. So that can squash these 3 right here, right off the bat. These are all designed by the government to say you have to stay within the confines of life insurance. That's why you can't put $90,000 into a $100,000 policy.
Because it'll become a taxable event.
Exactly. Now, back in the day, pre-Tefra, you could, but they caught on.
Hey, Phil, Prasanna here. The
Hey, buddy.
taxable event is only for the withdrawals, not for the death benefit, isn't it?
You are correct. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's why a mech is not bad if you're death
Make it not
benefit
bad at all.
focused.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If it is a estate transfer kind of deal, someone is working on that, that's push as much as you want. Yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly. And that also works for living benefits too, because it's an acceleration
Correct.
of your death benefit.
Correct. Yep.
It's only the cash withdrawals. So you are absolutely correct. But because we're showing this from an income standpoint, we want to make sure it doesn't become a mech. And so 10,000 is the most you can put in. Now, us as financial professionals, we look at what we're going to get paid on that. So $3,018, great day, right? 3,000 in my pocket, whatever. Some people might bitch and complain because it's not $5,000, $10,000, right? Customers put in 10, I should get 10. That's not how this works. But what I would say is, if you'll notice here, 176,000 is kind of a funky number. And I'm also 40, okay? In this example, I wish. No. So if, for example's sake, I were to copy this guy, I'm gonna get rid of this other guy, and instead of solving for face amount, I change it to no solve now. I know what the floor is. It's 176, almost $177,000. Let's say, for example's sake, I move this up to $250,000. Okay? Nothing else has changed in any of this. I'm just going to hit calculate and see what the difference is. So, in the last example, 10,000 is the max. 176 is my starting face amount. And my income is hypothetically going to be around $39,000. 39,900, I think it was. Here, we increase the death benefit up by about 75 grand. So we have a higher death benefit. So you have higher living benefits to start with. But what does it do to the rest of the policy? Loading. Okay, Mr. Client, Mr. Phil, what you'll see here is that we have increased the death benefit a little bit to give you some space because you're only 40. Most peak earning years are between late 40s, early 50s. Now you don't have to go through underwriting again, and you can put in an additional $4,000, almost $4,100 a year. You can also catch up. So if year one, you only put 10 in, year two, you can actually put $18,000 in. So if you get a bonus, you can catch up on that extra premium. So what you did is you buffered it a little bit. You added in a little death benefit. So if they want to put more money into it, they can. You as a producer have just added another $1,200 to your pocket. Nothing too egregious. But if you look at how the income plays out, $38,851. We lost $1,000 of hypothetical money a year, or $80 a month ish. So, Mr. and Mrs. Client, which do you think makes more sense? Do you want that extra space in case you want to put extra money into it? You get an extra bonus, or you get a raise, you're trying to put more money away. It's not going to make a huge impact to the quote unquote hypothetical income. So there's an opportunity to give you better living benefits, better opportunity to fund a higher amount or buffered space. Didn't impact the cash too much. And for those who are looking for just a little extra juice, you got a little extra compensation to give them that buffered space. So is it the absolute minimum? No. Is it me taking 176,000 and turning it into a $500,000 death benefit? Absolutely not, because that would be way too egregious. You could potentially get away with 300,000, but you can play around with it and see if it makes sense. But all of this is designed to help the customer at the end of the day And there's just that little extra value if you have the ability to, increase the death benefit a little bit, depending on age, depending on situation, where it could help them out.
Is there a band on a $250,000 base amount?
There is.
Is it all to a $250,000 increments for the band?
For the most part, with most carriers, there's 255, 750, and a mil. Some carriers will do 255 and then a mil and skip the 750. So you'll see that most prevalent in term cases though, because a term case 250,000 is cheaper than 200,000, like physically cheaper. But if you look at policies like permanent, 200 will be cheaper than 250, but the cost per thousand is cheaper on the 250 than the 200.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah, no problem. Great question, though. A lot of people don't realize about banding and what it can really do for a policy. So, if you're close enough to say a quarter mark, then it's worth checking to see what it would do. I've had some cases where it's like 497K. I'm like, all right, well, we'll do 500K. It may shave like off of this like $50 a year, but in the long run, I know they're going to be less cost of insurance and it'll make more sense. So it's just a matter of making sense in what you're doing, justifying it, and you can show both options to the client and see what makes sense. I've literally gave the same explanation, not the target part, but I've given the same explanation to customers, and every single time they've picked the buffered strategy that I'm showing you here versus the other one because they understand that they want options in the future. Everybody loves to have options. That's my personal downfall because when they started doing those options or the value menus at these drive-throughs, I like options, so it hurt me more than helped me. Um, anyway, different story for a different day. Um,
Now, Phil, I have a question.
sure.
When the customer takes out a loan against this, and is the death benefit affected at the time of if and they don't repay it back, does the death benefit go down?
Yep. So, maybe the video's in the way. I had mine in the way, but if you'll see, your death benefit's 402 or 491 here at 65, then you took out 38 grand and now it's 476.
Okay, I see.
So
Okay.
it is going to go down because the death benefit and the cash value are aligned. And so as you start to take out income, you have that conflicting, your death benefit will go down and down and down. And then once you stop taking income, it should start increasing again. And that's simply because the rate of return is higher than the borrow rate on this participating note.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
So
thank you.
that's why it's going to go up. No problem. And other people will look at this accumulation value and they'll say, oh, well, it's your accumulation value plus your death benefit. That's incorrect. It is just the death benefit in the far right-hand column. What this accumulation value is a combination of your cash value, your loan value, and your death benefit kind of all muddled together. But what happens is you, upon passing, your tax-free death benefit pays off the loan, and then the residual extra, whatever's left over, goes to the beneficiaries. So the hypothetical phrase that you have here is you pull out tax-free income while you're alive, and then your tax-free death benefit pays off the note that you borrowed from the insurance company, ultimately giving you the surplus or the leftover tax-free to your beneficiaries. So in every step of the way, Uncle Sam is not getting a piece of the action if done
Yeah, Phil, but
appropriately.
what would withdrawal? I mean, why not take withdrawal? Because loan, you have to keep on paying the interest, right?
Yeah. Well, if you take a loan, or sorry, if you take a withdrawal, it's like taking the standard loan. So the standard loan after year 10 is going to be a net zero cost loan. some carriers will charge you like $250 to take a withdrawal. So it would be safer to do the standard loan because it's a zero cost loan altogether. So 2% charge, 2% credit. So I would do the standard loan over taking out a withdrawal.
With
But
the withdrawal too, aren't you removing from the accumulation value that's going to compound off of?
That's where the participating would make sense, but if you did
Yeah.
standard, it's the same as a withdrawal.
yeah,
There are some situations though where you'll have the 2% credit, and after, because I've seen it in some situations, year 11, the loan rate is like 1.91. So it was actually cheaper, and you were making money off of it, but it's something that you don't really mess with, I would say. So I would say it's a toss up. You'd have to review with the carrier. I'm pretty positive Corbridge, it's like $250 if you take a withdrawal.
yeah, $250. But here's the thing with the loan. I mean, you have to pay loan at some point, right? I mean, if you don't pay it, then it's going to get it cut from your death benefit.
Right, exactly. So, but people, when they do this type of design, typically it's purely for their benefit, right? So selfishly speaking, I care about my retirement. I don't really care about the death benefit.
Okay. Okay.
Right? So if we had that true value proposition of leaving money to the next generation, then instead of maybe putting 10 grand in this, I might put 8 grand in this and 2 grand into a protector product or something like that to give me a death benefit that's focused on a death benefit versus focused on cash growth. So, but the perk is like, say, I passed away, at age 70, I still have 429,000 and I started with 250,000. So really, I did get more. I got a total of, 40, 80, what is that, 120, whatever, 150. I basically got my money back, and then, or 160, whatever, I don't know, 200. And I still get a $429,000 death benefit. So it just depends on the customer and how they perceive it. But a lot of times, we as agents will portray these as you have your cake and eat it too. Like I could, like Prasanna, if I wanted to, on this illustration, now I could go back into disbursements and show $25,000 income, and it's still better than what I put into it, what I'm getting out of it, and I would have a higher death benefit to leave to the next generation.
Yeah.
So it just depends on, and that's the beauty and also the downfall. If you're not experienced, you don't know that you can do these little architectural changes to the design to give someone what they're looking for, and you end up, overpromising. So that's where some of the situations like this, we just want to make sure that, we're cognizant of what we're doing and ultimately make sure that the customer has clear indication as well.
Okay. And do we have to tell them while withdrawals that is going to be participating loan, or we have to decide it right away during the design?
You don't have to design it that way. It basically, so the client has the choice when they take out the loan what they want to do.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, it's that. And let's say you move to a different state, you're not talking to them anymore. The people on, customer service, that's like that $120 charge that I showed in the costs after year 15. That's for someone to pick up the phone and say, "Thank you for calling Corebridge. This is Phil. How can I help you?" That's
Yeah.
paying their bills. So, there should be someone who can help them on the customer service side as well. Should be.
Yeah.
So, but Yeah, I mean, this is a great topic, and I know we went from just talking about par loans and standard loans to actually, kind of reviewing the whole thing. Um, we're at about an hour. I didn't know if anybody had any other quick hits or anything that you wanted me to talk about to kind of go over, or I don't know if this is a good stopping point.
I have a question.
Yeah,
I
what's
saw
up?
I saw on one of the pages, I'm not familiar with Core Bridge, so this is great. But I saw on one of the pages an option for a rider for dollar cost averaging on an IUL. What
Yeah.
would be the advantage of doing a dollar cost averaging on an IUL? Would that be for like a single premium? Or can you add that on for other types of accounts? What's the benefit?
So I'll actually show you
Like if it's
because
a
I did it.
monthly premium, what
You
is the
can't do
purpose
it.
of it? Sorry. Okay,
Yeah.
that answers my question.
Yeah. So I'll give you a good example. Annual, you get the cheapest cost of insurance, followed by monthly, followed by semi, followed by quarterly. So if I were to, for example's sake, do annual, I would get cheaper costs of insurance. But if I wanted to, for example's sake, have that 12 buckets, that's what the DCA is. So I'm paying 2 grand for my son's policy. And with that, I'm having it DCA'd. So I'm going to get a fixed interest every credit for that 2000 as it slowly goes into the system. But like a good example here, let's say June of last year, it's coming up here. You'll see the returns for MOSB, not
Mhm.
so hot. PIMCO, not so hot. S&P kind of carried it, so 9% return. Now, if we go to later on, let's look at November. 8, 8, 10, 11. So now I have a 10, 6, 9 return. And then I think it was December, if I recall correctly. Yep, so still some strong numbers. But when you look at that, might have been October.
And all the
October, I think.
premiums held in like a separate account.
Yep. So it
Okay.
stays in the dollar cost averaging account. Yeah, this is the good one. 14, 14, and 11. So at a 12.64 return. But while I'm waiting, this is not the annual statement. This is just an index credit. So
Mhm.
if I went to my actual statement, which is right here, okay, so this will show you right here, index account interest. That's nothing because I didn't have any buckets mature. But here
Okay.
is the declared interest. So while it waits in the fixed account, it's getting a declared interest. And so that's what's happening.
Okay. Is there,
So
and that's just an option on this policy for anyone that you're paying like an annual premium on it? There's like no minimums, no premium minimum in order to do the dollar cost averaging?
yeah, it's basically an annual, a lump sum, or a 1035 exchange. You can do a
Okay.
DCA.
Oh, okay. Thank
You
you.
can choose to do a DCA only for the 1035 and do something completely different for the annual premiums too, or monthly
Okay.
premiums, whatever.
Wouldn't it make
So
sense to kind of always do that for a 1035 exchange so you can control the size of the policy?
I would say it's always beneficial to do, period, because
Okay.
we ran calculations when I was at AIG. It was like a giant Excel sheet made by actuaries, not by me, where they showed annual returns versus monthly returns, and monthly statistically beat it every single time because you're averaging out. And I'm a degenerate, so I'll gamble. And if you think of like roulette, you got 36 numbers on a table. You put all your chips on one number, you got a 1 in 36 shot of winning.
Mm.
But if I spread it out over 12 numbers, now I have a
Yeah.
1 in 3 shot.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'd rather have more shots at the table. So yeah, that's the DCA. You know, some other riders that, you know, most people don't utilize would be, you know, for example's sake, early cash value rider. You can only use that for business cases with Corebridge. I would probably use Columbus for early cash value rider policies. AAS is a long-term care or chronic illness rider. It gives definition to chronic illness. So 2% of the death benefit at time of long-term care type needs, and you can get that dollar for dollar reduction. A lot of these, though, most people don't pick because they're a throwaway. Like, I don't do waiver of monthly deduction or specified premium because I'd rather have the money going towards the income. Now, I also have not had a client get disabled during his working years or her working years, so I could be skewed in the reason why I'm picking that. But some people like it. I haven't had that experience yet, so I'm not in that situation. But to each and to their own with the riders. But yeah, that's I guess you'd say a quick tutorial on, you know, par loans, standard loans, little illustration magic, if you will, with our good friends at Corebridge. So every carrier is going to be different. Every situation is going to be different. But the best thing is that you have the ability to run several carriers and be as agnostic as possible to allow you to be, you know, unbiased. So, but yeah, that's the main thing. If you guys, I'm just gonna kind of wrap here. If you guys again are in the Orlando area and we're doing a lunch and learn, so if you have people you think should also be under the Valor umbrella, so to speak, you know, just let them come to the event. Gloria put it in the events already on the tab there. And then just once again, if you haven't registered yet, you should register now before the price goes up to $100. It's only $25. The great collaboration, May 3rd and May 4th. It's a Saturday and half day Sunday in Dallas, Texas, in Irving specifically, about 10 minutes from the DFW airport. And we feed you lunch, we feed you breakfast on the 4th, and we feed you a ton of knowledge to help you grow your business. So it's definitely worth going. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. It is not a recruiting event, it is a collaboration event, strategically a collaboration event. So with that, I don't see any other questions, comments, raw outbursts of emotion. So I will call it an evening. Appreciate you guys, you know, jumping on. I know it's always the witching hour here, but I think some of the best dialogue comes from these evening conversations. So I want to say thank you again, and we'll be on tomorrow as well, 4 o'clock Central. Appreciate you all, and have a good night.
Thank you, Phil.
Yep. See you.